In this video, we are taking the Team Associated DC10 and we're looking at these Kashima coated shock bodies plus their low friction X-rings and spacers. Just looking to see, especially the rear, but maybe the front as well, can we make the shocks move a little bit freer? That a way that we can help with weight transfer on this car and get it to get a little bit more grip. That is what we are looking at. The spring off. Because the spring is a different part of the setup. I want to get here to the shock itself. Now what I really want to be able to get to, look at that, still has good rebound. That tells me that it's still sealed. Tells me that the basic design of the shock is actually pretty dang good. I want that to be just like buttery smooth. So what do I got to do? All my components of the shock here are now blown apart using shock pliers. If these Echo Power ones work pretty well, actually. If you are watching this video and you are this deep into shock building for an RC drift car and you don't have a pair of shock pliers, then stop the video. Link will be to these will be in the video description. Go buy them now. If you are this concerned about making your shocks work, you need to use a pair of pliers. As I tune this, I think there's three options. Here's my thing. I don't think I'm an expert at this, but in my mind, I think there's three things that we're going to be working on. If you want your shock to move smoother in the body, piston to move smoother in there, one, reduce the fluid weight. So as an example, I'm going to be going with some 10 weight Team Associated fluid, which I think might be the same thing that was in it from the factory. The piston that you choose, the number of holes in it, the design of the piston, is it tapered, is it not, that kind of thing, is any kind of sticking or friction. So whether it's the piston to the shock bodies, which is where these come in, or whether it is these guides down at the bottom, and that's where these come in, or even some manufacturers sell maybe a more precise shock shaft or a coated shock shaft to make it even smoother. I think those are really the three things that we're talking about here. And if I'm missing one, please go down in the comments and let me know. Looking at these shock bodies, they look, yeah, basically identical. So it looks identical to the factory shock, but yet with this coating on it. For this initial test, I'm going to put the factory piston and rod right back in it. Not going to do any different there. And then we're going to we have the fancy O-rings, which I definitely don't want to scuff these or anything, so I'm going to use this small bottle and drizzle a little oil on it. So here's those X-rings, low friction X-rings. They come with their own low friction spacers. It doesn't look like they're any different than the factory ones, but the factory ones were cut off of a parts tree. These are not, and I wonder if that is a difference. We'll go ahead and get this end cap on. And using our handy dandy shock stand here, we're going to go ahead and put in some of this 10 weight oil. Honestly, I think even just right here we can do part of the test that we're looking to do here. So even without putting the top of the cap on, what does the force feel like right here? Just using my finger back and forth here, that pretty much feels like it did before. We're gonna have to do more. We're gonna have to do more than just those low friction rings and these fancy shock bodies. I dumped all that fluid out because one of the other things that you'll hear people talk about is basically you just put a couple drops in there. Run your shocks with no oil and oh, you're gonna get even better movement. And here's what's really interesting is moving fast, of course, it feels like there's less friction because those holes in the piston doesn't really have anything to push through. So yeah, when you're moving fast like that, there's like no resistance at all. But what I think is interesting, you can almost hear it if I stop talking. That squeaky sound, that's of course it moving air around even in just that little bit of oil that it has. What's interesting is it's stickier down at the low ends. You can actually feel that piston kind of like rubbing on the side and everything. I don't think no oil is the way that I want to go, but I can see a little bit why people would want to do that because we are almost trying to mimic a borderline no oil feel. It's not going to get much smoother than that now, is it? With the piston back out here, I think this is what we're going to attack next, is use my handy little twist drill with some different sized bits in it here. I'm going to open up those 4 holes that are in there now. I'm going to be careful not to get them too big to get out here and disrupt the edge of the piston, because I don't want anything rough or burry on the edge there that's going to cause an issue. Using the drill bits here as just a gauge, I noticed that the factory holes appear to be about a 1mm hole. So I've loaded up a 1.5mm bit, and that's what we're going to use to open up these holes. Holes are now 1.5. That's a whole lot bigger than they were before. Doesn't feel much different though. That's really interesting to me. Fluid, I mean, it made a difference. When we were running 0 fluid, I could definitely tell the difference. Maybe there's still some friction from like the side of that piston. One of the other things you'll see people do occasionally is they buy tapered pistons. So instead of the pistons being just a square profile, the edges are actually a curved over, either top or bottom or both. So I didn't buy any of those either. So what I did is I took this over to my bench grinder, and I just ever so carefully came in and worked that top of that piston just to round off the top a little bit. Right, but I made sure not to touch the edges, because that's what holds the piston square in the cylinder. Alright, yep, that didn't do it either. I have to wonder, is it more holes? Well, if no oil works, how about 8 1.5mm pistons? It's a good thing pistons are cheap, because this is probably ruining this piston, and this is hilarious. So old shock versus new shock. You know how I started this whole thing with saying that this isn't very calibrated? Turns out this not a very calibrated, and I really wish I had a shock dyno. It turns out we played with that so much, I kind of lost track of where we were. If you feel this, and you feel this, oh my gosh, this one feels like it's in mud. Oh my gosh, I have to like use muscles and everything to move it. This one over here, butter, so smooth. Wait a second, I think we stumbled across it and I didn't even realize. Isn't that silly? This is so easy, and this legitimately feels like it's in mud. Drill bigger and more holes in your piston, taper the edges of them down a little bit, buy the fancy shock body, buy the low friction shocks. It makes a huge difference in how well that moves. Look at that. That moves so much freer and easier now. But I'll be honest, if you really watch it, you can tell it's too soft. Or the springs are a little bit too stiff. I might be able to go, now that I got the shock moving freer, I may be able to go one step softer in spring, but if you watch the rebound, it actually comes up and travels more and then back down. See that? So shocks are feeling dramatically better, almost too good, or they're a little bit too under dampened for the spring, and we might need to go down a little bit in spring now. Isn't that wild? There we go. So next up for me is to do the front of the car now. We still have 2 more shock bodies and 2 more ends. This front feels a lot better to me than the rear, so maybe it's not as high of a priority, but I still want to do it. If you have any questions about what I've done or how I've done it in this video, please leave them down in the video comments below, and I'll be happy to answer as many as I can. If you want to see anything else that I've done specifically with this DC10, there's a whole DC10 playlist that'll be popping up over here to your right, and I hope to see you in one of those videos. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.